The most brutal battle you will ever face in this life does not take place in the world outside. It is not found in social upheavals, nor does it stem from the judgment of the crowd. The most dangerous, most cunning enemy wears your own face. It is that weak, impulsive version of yourself, trembling before hardships and craving comfort, a version that silently grows within your mind every single day. Every morning, as the first light touches the earth, two selves awaken together. One is a coward trying to pull you back into ease, whispering justifications that sound all too reasonable. The other is a silent warrior, forged in steel discipline, quiet, yet always ready to reclaim control. Stoic philosophy calls this an unforgiving war. You either stand with discipline and end that weakness today, or you let it slowly gnaw away at you, shackling your life to a mediocrity of your own making. Welcome to Stoic Journey. This is where you don't seek comfort, but forge an unbreakable inner self. If you are tired of being ruled by your emotions, hit subscribe and leave a like as a commitment to yourself. Share this video as a spark in the darkness and leave a comment. I choose discipline, a vow that needs no witness. We often lull ourselves into the illusion that time is infinite, that there is always a tomorrow to start over. But weakness does not vanish on its own. It feeds on those very procrastinations. The line between a quitter and a master of their own life never lies in talent. It lies in the moment they face the truth about themselves. And that truth is not pleasant. You don't need more motivation. You need brutal honesty with yourself. Because the door to transformation only opens when you are brave enough to step past the lies you've been using to protect your own weakness. Part 1. The enemy with your own face. The dust and grime of the social struggle often blind us, making us believe that external pressures are the source of all our pain. We forget that the most brutal battlefield lies silently right beneath our own skull. The greatest war of a lifetime does not point its sword at any external foe. It aims directly at the weak, impulsive, and fear-filled entity rooted deep within your mind. It is cunning because it never takes the form of a growling demon or a giant obstacle. This entity appears in the guise of affection. It is the soft whisper, urging you to pull up the warm covers on a freezing winter morning instead of lacing up your shoes to face the cold. It is the soothing caress when you sit before a daunting project, telling you that you've worked hard enough, that you should just close the laptop and scroll through your phone as a reward. Every dawn, as consciousness awakens, a lowly and cowardly version of yourself rises alongside the disciplined warrior you aspire to be. One craves ultimate comfort. The other seeks a great legacy. Stoic philosophy does not view this inner tug-of-war as a mere psychological state. They see it as a bloody crusade to reclaim self-mastery, a process of uprooting internal lies. The survival rule here is simple. You cannot harbor both selves. You must decide who survives today, at this very moment, not through some soft compromise tomorrow or next week. If you go easy on weakness, if you let it survive one more day, it will ruthlessly sink you into the quagmire of mediocrity, shackling your life with chains of fear and self-imposed limits. Transformation demands that you be ruthless with yourself, stripping away long-held self-pity and facing the cold truth that time is not an infinite asset to be squandered. The first step toward freedom is to stop negotiating with that easygoing part of your humanity. The moment a thought of quitting or procrastinating flickers, identify it immediately. That is not your highest self, but a parasite waiting to seize control. Crush it with decisive action. Cut off the cowardly train of thought with the iron command of reason. The poison of procrastination. However, that weak entity is deeply rooted. When it senses your resistance, it won't attack head-on, but will retreat into silence, waiting for the exact moment you let your guard down. Then, it unleashes its most lethal weapon, a toxin that causes no pain and leaves no wound, yet is potent enough to erode an entire lifetime. It is procrastination. No noise, no drama, no warning bells, just a very light thought. Tomorrow is fine. A promise that sounds harmless. I'll start when I'm more ready. And it is that very gentleness that catches you off guard. You don't realize that every time you procrastinate, you are silently signing a death warrant, stripping away your own opportunities piece by piece. Procrastination doesn't kill you in a single moment. It kills you in silence. It turns mornings full of potential into meaningless days. It turns aspiration into intention, and intention into regret. And the cruelest part is that you still feel fine, while in reality, you are slowly losing the strongest version of yourself. Epictetus once reminded us that it is not circumstances that bind a person, but their reaction to them. And procrastination is one of the most dangerous reactions because it masquerades as rationality. It doesn't force you to stop. It makes you volunteer to stop. Therefore, the moment you feel the urge to delay, that is the battlefield. Not tomorrow, not when you have motivation, but right now. You either act or you surrender. There is no gray area in this war. Every small decision you make today, getting out of bed, starting the work, or refusing a comfort, is a sword strike. Either you are killing your weakness, or you are feeding it. Part 2. The death of excuses and the lie of motivation. That weak enemy does not growl or threaten. It counterattacks with the most invisible and soothing poison. Excuses. Just one more day off. This is too much. Leave it until tomorrow. These sweet whispers are, in fact, a death sentence, slowly eating away at your ambition and refinement. The comfort you cling to for a fleeting moment is actually a wretched illusion, a perfect shell imprisoning you in the stagnant swamp of stasis. We often delude ourselves with a frivolous concept called motivation. The masses wait for a vague spark of inspiration to fall from the sky before they start working. They wait for a perfect mood before lacing up their shoes. That is the mindset of the stuck. The brutal truth is, motivation is a fair-weather friend. It always evaporates, always abandoning you at the very moment you face the most grueling hardships. You cannot seize greatness through an emotional transaction where you demand to feel like it before paying the price in sweat. A fighter doesn't wait to feel excited before stepping into the ring, and a master writer doesn't wait for a storm of ideas before facing a blank page. The line separating them from the rest of the world is a set of iron laws. Discipline. Discipline is not a psychological state for you to pick up or put down. It is an absolute mandate you issue to yourself, then force yourself to obey, no matter how the storm inside you rages. The survival lesson to shatter this lie is to completely strip the mind of its right to negotiate. When hesitation appears, do not argue with your brain. Crush it with immediate action. The alarm clock blaring at dawn is not a mindless sound. It is the first war cry of the day. Reaching out to hit snooze for 5 minutes isn't just a physical delay. It is the moment you personally sign a treaty of surrender to cowardice. The weak wait for inspiration. The warrior creates energy through movement itself. But once you have stood up and strangled those excuses, another cold question emerges. What will you lean on when the darkness of insecurity and the storms of extreme internal emotion begin to rise? Extinguishing excuses was only the first strike. An even more violent purge awaits you in a space so quiet, it's terrifying. Part 3. Mastering Emotions and the Power of Solitude. Once you strip away the excuses, you are immediately thrust into an invisible yet equally fierce battlefield. The storm of emotions and a haunting, overwhelming silence. The weak are absolute slaves to their own nervous systems. They allow anger, fear, or anxiety to pull their strings like broken puppets, letting their moods dictate every action. A single moment of unrestrained rage is enough to incinerate a lifetime of built-up respect, and a decision born of panic can imprison a person's future in darkness for years. When facing the collapse of a passion project or bone-chilling life crises, the mediocre will scream, venting their frustration on the world or retreating into self-pity. But one forged by iron discipline understands a brutal truth. Emotions are merely warning signals, never mandates to manipulate behavior. He does not deny pain or resentment. He receives them like a cold general observing the enemy's movements. Stillness in the eye of the storm is the ultimate power. He steps back, takes deep breaths so the boundaries of reason do not fracture, and converts that fiery emotion into cold, sharp energy for the next life and death moves. To forge this lethal composure, you must pass through a door the masses always fear. Solitude. Most humans flee from silence. They fill their time with meaningless noise, frivolous pleasures, or endless scrolling just to avoid facing their own inadequacies. Seneca left a piercing warning. The clearest sign of an ordered mind is the ability to remain calmly in one's own company. Solitude is not a prison cell. It is the forge of greatness. The core lesson is that you must voluntarily disconnect from the noisy world every day. Put down every device. Sit in absolute silence to confront the coward within. Dissect your weaknesses and recalibrate your purpose. He who cannot endure stillness will forever wither away chasing the cheap validation of the crowd. Part 4. Establishing the action reflex. Absolute stillness of mind is only the first setup on the internal chessboard. But if even the smallest gap remains between thought and action, the weak entity will instantly slip through and reclaim control. That split-second void between knowing what you must do and the moment you actually get up to do it is the safest sanctuary for retreat. To terminate it, you must establish a brutal survival mechanism, the action reflex. The philosophy here is ice cold. Completely strip the brain of its right to negotiate. When hesitation appears, your body must automatically move forward before doubt can even take shape. Do not try to convince yourself with fleeting bursts of excitement, for motivation always demands that you feel ready before acting. A true warrior never waits for a mood to swing his sword. He turns action into an unconditional reflex, a default system where the body moves automatically the moment hesitation begins to germinate. The bloodiest battle of this mechanism often occurs when the first alarm clock tears through the night. Most choose to reach out and hit snooze, lulling themselves back for 5 short minutes. They have no idea that in the moment they curl back into the covers, they are silently training themselves to surrender to every delay the day will bring. To forge this iron reflex, the command must be absolute. When the bell rings, the body must snap awake, and feet must hit the floor with the urgency of someone entering battle. If the mind whispers that you are too tired to exercise, Answer with immediate action. Drop down and do 10 push-ups. It is the movement of the body that generates energy, while simultaneously shattering the lying whispers of laziness. The core lesson is to reprogram your nervous system, treating every flickering excuse as a siren warning that the enemy is invading. The mind says later. The body must instantly reply, now. This ruthlessness in immediate execution is the only antidote, turning forward momentum into an instinct so irresistible it crushes every voice of doubt in the nursery. However, mastering a morning or smashing a moment of laziness are merely the warm-up exercises of reason. An action system, no matter how perfect, can collapse when extreme hardship suddenly strikes. To keep from falling before the brutal twists of fate, one cannot wait for the storm to arrive before scrambling for cover. They must voluntarily step into the hardship. They must proactively temper themselves in adversity before fate has a chance to strike. Part 5. The Art of Voluntary Hardship. This fire is called voluntary hardship. The masses always submissively seek refuge in the arms of comfort, viewing ease as the ultimate goal of human existence. They evade pain, recoil from pressure, and believe that struggling is meaningless. However, a tempered mind understands a brutal truth. Comfort is the most toxic anesthetic. It silently erodes the will, strips away resistance, and turns a human being into a fragile entity ready to shatter at the first sign of adversity. Seneca did not wait until he lost everything to learn how to manage. He proactively lived in scarcity for days, stripping away fine food and warmth, just to prove to his mind how fragile the fear of poverty actually is. If you do not want to collapse before unforeseen tragedies, you cannot sit still and wait for the world to strike. On the contrary, you must stay one step ahead, personally designing intentional challenges to build spiritual endurance within your daily life. Transformation never sprouts from self-delusion. It only breaks its shell in the moment of fierce friction between who you are now and the great version you aspire to become. A person stepping under a freezing shower at 5 in the morning in the dead of winter is not merely performing a habit. As the icy streams tear through the warmth, the body's survival instinct will scream to flee. But that person stands still, holding their breath, using cold reason to crush the body's panic. That moment is no longer a minor act. It is a ritual declaring the sovereignty of the will. He is etching an absolute command into his nervous system. Reason is the ruler. Fear has no right to lead. Proactively tasting adversity is how you pay the dues for your own resilience. Every day, ruthlessly strip yourself of one privilege of ease. Step into a physical limit that makes your muscles scream, or face a skill so difficult it grinds your pride to dust. When you voluntarily throw yourself into intentional pressure, all external pain loses its power to manipulate you. A true warrior does not beg fate for an easy life. He only asks for an iron frame strong enough to carry the most brutal storms of his existence. And when you have crossed that severity, when every illusion of weakness has been stripped bare, you will be forced to face a question colder than all. Ultimately, in a life of constant flux, what is the only asset that cannot be stolen when a human reaches the end of their journey? Part 6. The Legacy of Strength. The only asset that cannot be taken from you when you close your eyes for the last time does not lie in soulless numbers in a bank account. The masses often cling to the illusion that legacy is a massive hoard of material wealth, dazzling fame, or a name loudly cheered by the world. Yet the cold truth is that many spend their lives clawing at that vanity, only to leave behind nothing but a long trail of regret, of potential eroded by compromise. They lull themselves into an illusion of safety, confusing idleness with peace, and throw away priceless years without realizing that time is the only thing that can never be redeemed. The legacy of an extraordinary human is never conceived in ease. It is carved from silent sacrifices, from the ruthless gritting of teeth to push oneself forward when everyone else has chosen to retreat. You don't need to look far to see greatness. It lies in the steady back of a person who keeps their moral principles clean in a falling society. It lies in how one faces the collapse of a career without a single word of grievance. These people do not live to scan the world's attitude, nor do they crave cheap applause. Their minds are focused on a single destination, wringing out every last drop of strength to perfect themselves. The core lesson here is the art of looking directly at death to define life. Memento mori. Instead of being a faint spectator lurking on the sidelines of your own life, turn every dawn into a sharp chisel stroke, carving the stone of your character. The execution is brutal but clear. Every night before closing your eyes, ask yourself, if today were your last day, would you be proud of how you just lived? Turn your existence into a lighthouse of iron discipline, silent yet powerful enough to light the way for those who follow. When the moment of destiny knocks, the coward will flail in the panic of 1,000 what-ifs. But a warrior who has passed through the forge will calmly welcome eternal silence with a smile of no regret, for he knows he owes life no effort left unspent. This life was not given to you to be a slave to weakness. You are here to personally terminate that mediocre version and forge an essence that time cannot easily erase. The sword of choice lies firmly in your hand. Either you swing it this very second, ruthlessly cutting through all lies to begin the internal purge, or you let the accidental dust of time slowly bury a legend that was never born. Who will you choose to become tomorrow morning? The path of the strong has never been a gentle stroll. It demands sacrifice, ruthless discipline, and relentless effort. But the reward for this internal bloody crusade is an impenetrable kingdom, where you hold supreme power over your own destiny. When the dust of time settles, the true legacy you leave behind won't be found in fleeting fame or soulless assets. It is carved from the steadfastness and dignity you maintained during your darkest days. When the moment of destiny knocks, a warrior who has poured every drop of life into his existence will not look back in the panic of what-ifs. He closes his eyes in peace, welcoming eternal silence with a complete conviction. I have lived. You were not born into this world to be a silent spectator, lurking on the sidelines of your own life, and certainly not to be a slave under the reign of weakness. You are here to dominate that inadequacy, to personally terminate the pathetic version parasitizing your mind, and to forge the strongest self you can possibly become. Do not wait for a perfect moment. Do not hesitate for even one more breath. If your mind is truly sick of the quagmire of compromise, if you are ready to swing the sword to purge the lies from within, hit the subscribe button and leave a like for Stoic Journey. That act is not merely an interaction. It is a nod of conviction to yourself. Share this message like a torch thrown into the darkness of procrastination, and leave your own silent vow in the comments. I declare war on cowardice. The weak version of yourself may have been overwhelmed today, but before tomorrow's sun can rise, another brutal manipulation of the brain will emerge. And what cold, sharp weapon will you use to reclaim your mind once more?